Welcome to Our Hen House. This is Marianne Sullivan.
And this is Jasmine Singer.
And thank you so much for joining us for this week's show. Jasmine's guest this week is actually, it's a revisit from somebody who's been on before, who is a race car driver and a passionate vegan environmentalist. And you are either saying, what? Or you're saying, oh, Leilani Münter's back. And you would be right if you said Leilani Münter's back. And we're so excited that she is.
So excited. And also, you'll be here later with Rising Anxieties. And this week on the bonus segment available to all Flock members, I will be continuing my conversation with Leilani. And if you're a member of the Flock, you will get that email the Tuesday after this podcast episode goes up with a link, or you could find it on the Flock Facebook page. If you're not a member of the Flock, why aren't you a member of the Flock? You could join for $10 a month at ourhenhouse.org/donate. And by the way, speaking of Leilani, in addition to shedding her light on us, I got this incredible piece of information from her. And since I recorded the interview, it's basically changed my life. She had me hold on before we started because she was making an espresso. And I was like, what are you using to make it? And she told me just like the Mr. Coffee espresso maker. And I had meanwhile been trying all of these fancy pants things and nothing was working. And then I was like I got a crappy $10 machine and it was terrible. It was disgusting. And then my French presses kept breaking. Finally, I got the espresso machine that Leilani swears by, and now I swear by it too. So I know she's changing the world and everything with her race car driving and her advocacy and the films and everything she stands for, which is so much beyond veganism. It all touches on veganism, but it's also like human overpopulation and just basically going through life making people uncomfortable in order to change things. But she has made everyone in my life less uncomfortable due to the fact that I now have my coffee in the morning. So thank you for that, Leilani.
Wow, I did not expect that particular feature to come out of this interview. So yeah, Leilani, thanks. Mr. Coffee, really?
Well, that's the brand. Yeah, okay. But it's it's a really
like
good
one of those big fancy things that, with like pipes coming out of, like they have in Italy.
Yeah. It's fancy. It's got pipes. It's good, but it's like, as far I had been sitting on this Amazon gift card for the longest time, and everything I ordered from Amazon, I was like, I'm not gonna use my gift card to buy like toilet paper or a bra or something I have to buy anyway.
You buy bras on Amazon?
I have. I'm not going to say it was the best decision I ever made, but...
All right.
Yeah, anyway.
Well, we're digressing from our digression.
Totally
now.
Digression. But you and I were talking this week about, like, I don't know, you said something, and I was like, Marianne, that's really good. Like, it helped me almost as much as that coffee machine that Leilani told me about. Like, it helped me to recontextualize things. And we were just talking about the importance of thinking big. And I kind of wanted to chat with you about this here for the sake of our listeners.
I think the reason that we were both concentrating on thinking big is that we had both gotten caught up in a lot of social media rabbit holes and, like squabbles that people are having. There just seemed to be a lot going on now. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to go down those rabbit holes because that's a creepy thing to do anyway. But just like these feuds start or these conversations start about small things and people get really caught up in them, and I can get caught up in them. And it's driving me crazy. It's one of the things that drives me crazy about social media. That has me so off it these days. And I think it's also hugely important. Like, I just think we're at the most amazing moment. And, well, maybe not quite at the moment yet, but things are actually shifting. And we have the potential to change things enormously. I mean, this whole Beyond Meat thing going public, and now they're going to be in, like, Tim Hortons in Canada. I mean, that's huge. And there's so much attention in the press to it. And people are really being very open to it and excited about it. It's a moment, and I think that moment's going to continue. And we have to be focusing on the big picture and not getting caught up in our, I don't know, like hating each other, which, we end up doing because we're human. And sadly for the animals, humans run the animal rights movement, and they're just mostly, not that great at focusing on the big picture. But I really, really want to do that.
Yeah. I don't know why, but something you just said, kind of upset me. I don't even know why. I just was thinking, it just hit me like that. Just thinking about
what?
I don't know how it's it's just 101 stuff. It's like how everyone is so caught up on just being mean assholes to one another. And I can't believe I'm crying. But I think I've reached the end. I can't handle the meanness. I think about how everyone is torn apart, and I know that I grew up before the internet and we were all still fucking mean to each other. So it's not like the internet created meanness. People were mean way before the internet. But I just keep thinking about these activists I know, and they're really good people, and they wake up and they brush their teeth, and they have their whatever coffee maybe made out of a machine that Leilani Münter recommends, and they just do the best they can. And that basic bottom line of humanity is gone.
I know,
so
one wrong
people.
move and everybody jumps on you.
I mean,
if you're out there at all, I just can't stand it anymore.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. And I know it's really obvious. It's obvious 101 stuff, but I can't get off of social media because it's what I do for a living. And it doesn't mean that I'm personally on it a lot, but it's just in my zeitgeist. And I don't know what to do. I feel I'm past being able to offer input or advice anymore because I feel completely powerless about this horror show that humans are creating while animals are dying and others are dying. And I just I'm glad to find hope in the other day I was on the elliptical at Planet Fitness, and the screen, it was a CNN screen, and it was in the last year childbirths have gone down by 33% in this country. I could have that percentage wrong, and Leilani's going to talk actually a little bit about human overpopulation, as I mentioned, but I was I felt cheering from my elliptical. People would have thought I was very weird, but I think there are reasons to hope, and obviously everything that's going on right now in the news and in Alabama, it's just horrible. So why do we have to be so horrible to each other?
Well,
and
we don't.
I'm not,
but
I'm not saying we shouldn't.
Ourselves.
But I'm not saying we shouldn't criticize. I actually think that there's a need for criticizing sometimes, but there's a way to do it that isn't mean. And it's if anyone is going to be mean to me or someone I care about or someone I don't know but is clearly just being ripped apart a new asshole, you're out. I mean, not just for me personally, but for a lot of people, you're just going to be pushed out. If we could just take a moment to remember that we all wake up in our bedroom in the morning, if we're lucky enough to have a bedroom, and we all take a shit, and hopefully if we're working correctly, and we all go about our days as best we can. That's what we need to think about when we're about to attack someone else. And so I went down that rabbit hole, and I should remember rabbit holes are for rabbits, not for me. Certainly not for me feeling this emotional about it right now. And I can't quite pull myself out of it. And I have to I know I will be able to, within the fullness of time, but there's too much infighting, and we're pushing everyone away. Everyone who cares about animals thinks the animal rights movement is this crazy toxic place at some point or another. So what are we going to do about it? It's what you said. We start with ourselves. We can only control ourselves. And I guess it's true. We have to think big. This isn't about us. And that doesn't mean we don't
I think that we just stick with our theme song, which is just indefatigably positive. And all we can control is ourselves. I'm sorry you've had such a difficult time.
I don't know why. I'm probably whatever. I'm not. You know what? I was about to just give you an excuse, I probably have PMS or something. But no, I'm just really upset. That's actually just what it is. And
I do have a story that you can sympathize with, because Rose was extremely Well, I got really upset about Rose today, and she was really upset. And Rose is 15, so I worry about everything. And she seemed really anxious. And so I thought, well, maybe she has to go out. She didn't have to go out. And then I look at her and she's actually shaking. And it's not cold in here, but sometimes she's fragile. And I think, well, I don't know, maybe she needs to be wrapped up in a blanket. And I tried that and it didn't help. And I thought, do I need to rush her to the vet? I don't know. Should I rush her to the vet? And then I realized that I had finished my lunch, but I hadn't put the plate in the kitchen. It was still on the table, and she wanted the rest of it, and that's what was wrong. So we all have problems, and some of them are so serious they make us shake with despair. And of course, it's completely my fault because I brought it in and then I gave her the leftovers. But she keeps losing weight, so I have to give her food. She has a good appetite, but she's sold.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's sweet, and I'm glad she finally got it. So
you have problems, Rose?
No, I don't.
Problems.
My problems are like nothing. I mean, I don't really have problems. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling the weight of a lot of stuff right this week, and
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's like the fullness of time. We all have our moments. We all have our days. Have you told me that Otto's has the Impossible Burger? So
Otto's is this tiny little deli. It's down the street from where I live, upstate New York now, and tiny little town, tiny little deli. And I walked by it the other day and it said Impossible Burger. I was like, oh my God.
That's crazy because I remember
the Impossible Burger is another thing that people like to get mad at each other online. I do eat the Impossible Burger. I totally respect you if your decision is not to because of the testing. I understand that decision. So let's get that out of the way. But wow, it was the Impossible 2.0. I hadn't had it before. It was really good.
Well, I remember trying to.
They don't have anything vegan.
Well,
like
that's what I was going to say. A few years ago, I went to Otto's. And I said, can you get a vegan option? And they said, well, actually, we have it. And I said, can you put it on the menu? Like this board. It's like a deli style. And they were like, yeah, we'll do that. And it was like a 8-point font. And everything else was huge.
Like it was like a hummus sandwich, I think.
You couldn't see it. Like you couldn't see that it was a vegan option. It was like the oddest, most passive aggressive move or something. I don't even know what.
I think it might have been a mistake. I don't know.
Hey, before we switch to the interview with Leilani, I just want to give a brief update about something that I'm kind of excited about, which is that in my whole little media career, I don't even know what you want to call it.
And the reason that you can't you can't take my way out and just get off social media for a while.
It's because I'm the new media director for Switch for Good, which is, I'm doing this in addition to the work I do for Veg News and the book I'm writing, which is coming out in a year and a half, which is about going vegan. And also, in addition to the Our Hen House work, I have joined forces with this incredible organization, Switch for Good. It's the number 4. And it's run by Dotsie Bausch, who you might have heard on the podcast a couple weeks ago or so.
Oh, yeah. If you missed that interview, go back.
It's amazing.
Because it's really good.
So basically, Switch for Good is this group of medical professionals and nutritionists and athletes and everyday active folks, like people like me who go on the elliptical and look at CNN headlines, who are really aware of all of the damage that the dairy industry is doing and are working to form a coalition of people to provide resources to athletes and everyone else about dairy and the horrors of it, and also the ways that we can basically free ourselves from the problems associated with it. Everything from like health concern after health concern after health concern to friggin' like institutionalized racism to the environmental issues. And we actually at Switch for Good had a video come out this week with Leilani, who's on our podcast today, talking specifically about that from a dairy perspective. And it's just an incredible organization. It's on the news side. It's less than a year old. And I hope that everyone to just follow Switch for Good on Instagram, specifically, because we're having a really good time and I love it. I love everything that they're doing. I'm happy to be on the team. Yeah.
Very excited for you.
Thank you.
Sounds like great work.
Well, Leilani's also doing great work, and I mean that aside from just the coffee machine recommendations.
Though that was an important contribution to the movement.
Totally.
Which brings us to your interview with Leilani Münter. As I mentioned, Leilani is a race car driver and environmental activist. And in fact, Discovery's Planet Green named her the #1 eco-athlete in the world. ELLE Magazine awarded her their Genius Award. Sports Illustrated named her one of the top 10 female race car drivers in the world. So in 61 starts, I don't really know what this means, but in 61 starts, she has scored 9 top 5 and 21 top 10 finishes. Oh, I guess it's kind of obvious what that means. And at the same time, she has adopted endangered rainforest to offset the carbon footprint of her race car and has used her race car to spread environmental awareness and animal rights awareness among millions of race fans in the U.S. She's also been featured in the 2015 Emmy-nominated documentary Racing Extinction. She does it all, and now you're going to hear from her.
Please like us. Check us out on social media and follow, do whatever you need to do to keep us on your radar. On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we are at Our Hen House, all one word. Also, you can find us online at ourhenhouse.org. And if you want to get in touch with us, or if you have any questions, or if you have any quandaries that you want us to consider addressing on the air, you can email us at info@ourhenhouse.org. Welcome back to Our Hen House, Leilani.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to talk with you. I know that you have been on before, and we re-aired one of your interviews recently as part of our best of, which was so fun for us because we are such big fans of all that you have done and all that you continue to do. But we were all like, well, why don't we just have her back on in real time? Because you're just constantly doing so much to change the world for animals. So thanks for joining us again. And for those listeners who haven't heard your previous interview, or for some reason have been living under a slab of tofu and aren't familiar with your work, describe for us your racing career and what you hoped to achieve.
Yeah, so I race in mainly in stock cars. I've raced open wheel cars as well, but primarily stock cars, like NASCAR style race cars. And I was in a development league of NASCAR called ARCA. And so I've been racing for 18 years. And previous to that, I was a biology graduate from the University of California in San Diego. And I've been using my race cars to talk about issues that I care about. So my race car is very different from the other drivers on the track in that it's usually a cause that's on my car rather than a product that I'm trying to get you to buy. So I've had, renewable energy, solar, wind, LED lighting, recycling companies. I've had 3 documentaries on my race car. The Cove, which is the Academy Award-winning film about the dolphin slaughter in Japan. Blackfish, I raced at Talladega, and we gave away DVDs of the movies at the racetrack. And then just recently, actually in February, I drove a What the Health race car, promoting the Netflix documentary What the Health. And I've spent the last 3 years with a vegan-themed race car, 2 different vegan-themed race cars, and we can get into the reasonings behind changing the marketing on the vegan cars later. But we gave away, so last year we did the vegan strong car, and we gave away 30,000 vegan cheeseburgers to the NASCAR fans. And then the year before, I had the vegan powered race car, and we were giving away Gardein vegan chicken wings.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, there's literally nobody on the planet doing what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons why you're just such a breath of fresh air, literally a breath of fresh air. So I want to hear about your work serving Impossible Burgers to NASCAR fans, which actually sounds kind of impossible. So let's start off for how you prepared this and what the marketing research showed.
Yeah, so the very first time that I drove the vegan car was the vegan powered car, and that started in 2017 at Daytona. And the response was just incredible. Obviously there had never been a vegan themed race car before, so it got coverage, as soon as we announced the race car. Like NBC covered it and Fox Sports. And so there was a lot of attention on the car just because obviously naturally people don't think of NASCAR and veganism as being something that went together. And that really worked to our advantage in that people were really interested to hear about it. And that race car, we really talked about all the issues for being vegan. So we were encompassing everything from animal rights to the environment to world hunger to human health. And so the car was called Vegan Powered. And when you came to our tent, we were giving away vegan chicken wings, but we were also giving away pamphlets about all these different and many different reasons why, you could come to the decision of going vegan. After the Vegan Powered car, the group that I was working with, which is two nonprofit groups that A Well-Fed World and Compassion Over Killing, there was a marketing company called Effect Partners that came in to help us with the best way to sort of convey this message to the audience. And they did a pretty extensive study about the U.S. population and what actually gets meat eaters or vegetarians to go vegan. And so they put people into a few different groups. So there were the meat eaters, which are people that eat meat and don't want to reduce their meat intake. And they make up about 54% of the U.S. population. And by far the most effective way to talk to that group of people, which is the largest, was to talk about health-based arguments. So this group was interested in living longer and avoiding degenerative diseases and losing weight and lowering their cholesterol. The second largest group was made up of what they refer to as meat reducers. So they still eat meat, but they're trying to cut back on it. And they make up 32% of the U.S. population. And they were also most compelled by the health arguments, but they were definitely more influenced by like the corporate role in food and antibiotics, pesticides, hormones, avoiding all of those things that are being fed to the animals before they made it to their plate. And by the way, meat reducers showed that they were actually 3 times more likely than meat eaters to consider going vegan. So that's probably the number one crowd that you want to focus on, just because you're most likely to convert them over the meat eaters. And then vegetarians made up 11% of the population that they interviewed in the U.S. And their reason for being vegetarian and not making the switch to vegan was actually primarily, they said, lack of convenient, tasty, and affordable alternatives. So, I mean, obviously, I think that's changing every single day I go to the grocery store. I feel like there's new vegan products out there and they're all getting better and better. And then the smallest part of the U.S. population was, of course, us, the vegans. And they actually found quite a bit of interesting information about the vegan population, and that was that there were 2 main barriers that are preventing vegans from spreading the movement to like the general population. And the number one reason was actually infighting. So they found that influencers and organizations spent a significant amount of energy like defining and defending like who's more vegan and like arguing amongst themselves. And this is really counterproductive, and it intimidates people that are newcomers to veganism or are thinking about coming in to be vegan. They see all this infighting and it makes them turn away. And then the second barrier that they found among the vegan population was they referred to it as vegan amnesia. And that's referring to that vegans often forget like the many subtle triggers that may have been at work to ultimately make them make the decision to go vegan. And so sometimes this results in campaigns that are focused more on like shock and awe rather than like a sustained like movement building over time. So learning all this information from the marketing team, we decided to change the marketing on the race car.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You had just mentioned something about it. Does that have to do with like vegan or plant-based, or is it a totally different subject about the marketing pivot?
So yeah, we completely changed. We didn't take the word vegan off the car, but we changed the marketing from vegan powered to vegan strong, and all of the messaging focused around health reasons for going vegan. And we had vegan bodybuilders at the vegan tent with us. We had Robert Cheek and Ryan Nelson, and they were helping me give away the food. And the reason that we did that was, because the marketing showed us that health is really the number one reason why people make that switch. So it was hard for me because it's not natural for me to talk about health, because my reason for being vegan is the animals and the planet. So naturally, since that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I want to talk about. But of course, when I saw the numbers and the study, I thought to myself, okay, if I really want to save animals and I really want to help protect the planet, then I need to learn how to talk about veganism on the health side, because that's how I'm going to be most effective.
I feel like our listeners and myself could really identify with, like, we are the Leilani in that situation. We're the ones that are like, well, you got to care about animals, dude. But you're saying that, like, all of the research is showing that we have to learn how to package it differently.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for the two largest segments in the population, which are meat eaters at 54% and then the meat reducers at 32%, it shows that their number one reason for making the switch, if they are going to do it, will be based on the health side of it. And keep in mind that little tidbit that meat reducers are the ones that are 3 times more likely than meat eaters to consider veganism. So those are the people that are actively eating meat but are trying to reduce their intake. So we found that to be really, really effective. And it was something that I had to learn. But for me, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter why people are vegan. At the end of the day, that's good for the planet. It's saving animals, and how they got there, to me, is irrelevant. So I learned the spiel. I learned how to talk about all the health reasons. And so that's what I focused on. And we did 8 races and 5 tents. And between those 5 tents at the racetrack, we gave away 30,000 vegan cheeseburgers. We were having fans. Yeah, race fans were coming back for like seconds, thirds, fourths. They absolutely loved it. They couldn't believe it was vegan. They were like, this is amazing. It tastes just like meat. Wow. We did it right. We did Follow Your Heart cheddar cheese with the Impossible Burger, with Follow Your Heart Thousand Island dressing, with lettuce and tomato on a toasted pretzel bun that was toasted with Miyoko's vegan butter. Wow. So we really, we did it right, and the sliders were fantastic and super tasty, and we couldn't get them out fast enough. I mean, I constantly had a long line at my tent, and it was so funny. One of the races, we were at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. And we were actually, my vegan tent was set up right next to the Johnsonville sausage tent. And I did this like panoramic shot that's up on my Instagram where the Johnsonville sausage like display was empty all day long. Just nobody was there. And our vegan tent had a consistent line of like 30 people waiting for the Impossible sliders to come off the grill so they could get some, because we couldn't make them fast enough. So we were consistently, even one of the NASCAR media people came over to me and he said, wow, I'm so impressed. Like, your vegan tent is consistently the most popular tent in the NASCAR fan zone.
I remember I was in New York recently, and I saw that same kind of thing. I was at Pennsy, which is this food court above Penn Station, and there's a cinnamon snail in the food court, and then which is vegan, and directly next to Cinnamon Snail is like this kind of sausage restaurant, and it was the same thing, and I took a photo of it because it was so fun to look at. Like, literally 0 people at the sausage place. Some poor guy, standing there like as the greeter or whatever, whoever he is. And like the line at Cinnamon's now, like 100 people long.
That's so great. Yeah, it was pretty funny. We were all kind of laughing about it because this was, for the whole race weekend. And the guys over at the Johnsonville Sausage, like we couldn't help but like look over and kind of notice that they were just standing there staring at our line, like wondering what they did wrong. So we had incredible success with it. And going back to your question about like the plant-based versus vegan, that was a debate that we had before we launched the vegan powered car, because we were, we knew we were going to go in and talk to a large group of people that hadn't probably, been exposed to too much vegan food at the racetrack. And we thought, what should we do? Like, do we use the word vegan, or are we going to try and be more subtle and say plant-based? So we weighed out like plant-powered, plant-strong, vegan-powered. And at the end of the day, the reason why we decided to put vegan on the car was we wanted to normalize the word vegan. We wanted to hear, the Fox Sports race television commentators have to say the word vegan. And honestly, like we got so much exposure. That first race that we did at Daytona, they played like a whole 5-minute special about my vegan car. We had so much success, and they kept talking about, hear these like NASCAR legends talking about, yeah, I tried some of her vegan food and it was really good. And this is all like airing to like millions and millions of race fans, hearing not me talk about how good the vegan food, but actually hearing like their heroes, the guys they listen to talking about NASCAR every single weekend at every single race, are talking about how good the food is. So it was really, really powerful. And I'm glad that we made the decision to sort of just own it and put vegan on the hood. And I think it was, it did have that effect of like turning on the television, and here you're seeing like, they've got like a Burger King car and they've got a McDonald's car, and now you're seeing a vegan car. I even had somebody send me a picture, because we have little die-cast cars, like Matchbox size cars, of the vegan strong car, and sending me pictures of it sitting next to like, their collectors of all of these different little race cars. And there's my vegan strong car sitting next to the McDonald's car or the Shell oil car. It's very cool to see it become a part of like the narrative of the story of racing.
And you're uniquely situated, like I said, nobody's doing this work. And I love that people just show up at a race and then suddenly there's like a bunch of vegan advocates feeding them vegan cheeseburgers. Like it just makes me smile so much to imagine, as opposed to like people who opt in to go to a veg fest or whatever, where like, they already know they're going to be exposed to it of all places, a race car event. So I understand though you've actually decided to retire from racing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we ran my last race at Daytona in February, and I'm 45. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've really enjoyed it, but my body is not able to take 200-mile-an-hour crashes the way it used to. And I also had an opportunity to, I'm on the board of the Oceanic Preservation Society, which is the Academy Award-winning team behind the films The Cove and Racing Extinction. And I worked for almost 5 years on Racing Extinction, and then I joined their board. And so I had the opportunity to work with them on a new documentary film about human population, actually, that I've been wanting to make for a long time. And I knew that as long as I kind of kept racing and, kept looking for sponsors and had that going on in the background, I wouldn't be able to fully commit myself into making this film. So I felt that I had to truly like close the door on racing to be able to fully open the door on making this documentary film.
Well, let's talk about that. Why is human population a huge animal rights issue, really.
It is, yes. So the human population took about 200,000 years to hit our first billion people. And that happened in the year 1804. It then took us only 126 years to double that to 2 billion. We hit that number in 1930. 30 years later, in 1960, we hit 3 billion. And then in the year that I was born, 1974, just 14 years later, we hit 4 billion. And so now the population has nearly doubled in my lifetime. We're approaching 8 billion people now. And obviously, all of the environmental issues that we are facing, that we're talking about, climate change, ocean acidification, habitat destruction, pollution, extinction of species, loss of biodiversity, all of those things are being amplified by our rapidly growing numbers. So we're currently adding a net growth to the planet of approximately 1 billion people every 12 years, which if I was to make that into a smaller number, like 1 million people, that's 1 million new people every 4.5 days net growth. So that's more that are born than pass away. Wow. So this is obviously unsustainable. You know, we're on a finite planet and there's only so much carrying capacity that the Earth has for us to all live. And Cornell University actually did a year-long study to determine what is the carrying capacity of the Earth. Should all humans be living in relative prosperity with, access to clean water and electricity? And that number that the ecologists there came up with was 2 billion. So that means we've already overshot the runway by 5.6 billion and are rapidly still flying off the runway.
Well, so I just would like your thoughts on this, because in some more prosperous nations, populations are actually declining. Why is this? And do you think this makes people less aware of the problems caused by population growth?
Well, population growth is slowing in developed nations, but one thing that people get confused with sometimes is they confuse population growth numbers, so like fertility rates, with how many numbers we are adding to the population, which is not the same thing. So you can say, yes, here in the U.S., the growth rate, the fertility rate has gone down from, and I don't know these numbers exactly, but let's say 2.2 to 1.9. We're still adding people. It's just saying that the amount of people that are being added is slower. It's not that the population has stopped growing, because you have to consider when you've got people with a fertility rate of 1.9, but there's 1 million more of them 4.5 days later, or 1 billion more every 12 years, you're still growing the population. It's just that it's at a lesser rate, but you still have more people growing at that population growth number, that fertility rate. So you can't get confused with like growth and the total numbers of population. So we're still adding a lot of people to the United States. One of the things that I think we need to point out is consumption. So that has to be a big part of the equation, right? Because a child born here in the United States has a carbon footprint that's like 20 times greater than a child born in India or in a third world country that's not developed yet. So you have to consider that also it's us that are doing the most damage. This is obviously a volatile issue, and it can be very emotional, and it's a hard one to talk about, but I have been concerned about it for like 25 years. When I was in college at UC San Diego, I one day went into my biochemistry class, and my biochemistry professor told us all to close our books and said, we're not going to talk about biochemistry today. I'm going to show you a film about population. And I remember just being devastated by it because I had never even thought of it before. And I walked all the way across the campus with my professor talking about it. I was probably 20 years old. And I decided right then I was not going to have any children. I was not going to contribute to our population growth. And, here I am 25 years later, I'm 45, and I'm still thinking about that film in that day. And I want to make a similar film, but a feature length documentary with OPS. And I think this is a really important issue that is also the least talked about issue. There's a group out of Africa that has actually changed from being a conservation group. They were trying to save habitat, trying to save animals. And then at some point they realized, you know what, all these trees we're trying to save and this habitat and these animals that we're trying to save, as long as our population is growing the way that it is, these trees are going to get cut down. These animals are going to get killed. This habitat is going to be polluted or completely removed. And so they switched from being an environmental conservation group and are now a family planning group. So this is a really important issue that I feel like oftentimes gets avoided because people don't want to ruffle feathers and because it's a highly emotional issue. But I really believe it's the most important issue for that reason. And, when I talk to people that have kids and they're like, well, arguing against me and saying like, it's not natural to not have children. And my response back is, this is how human beings have to evolve if we want to survive. And in fact, you who have children should actually be thankful that there are people like me that are choosing not to procreate, because the world for your children and your grandchildren will be less crowded and will be a cleaner, better place because of people like me that are not bringing more people into the world. And I always also like to point out, there are 153 million orphan children in the world that are already here that are in need of a home. So if you really want to nurture a child and be a parent, you've got 153 million of them that you could adopt. So there's always that option as well. So I really feel that this is an issue we need to start talking about, and the future of life on Earth truly depends on us addressing this and not continuing to ignore it and act like, oh, it's fine as long as we continue to add people. If we just all put solar panels on our roofs, which I have, or drive an electric car, which I have, or go vegan, which I am vegan, all those things are great, but it cannot make up for the sheer amount of numbers of humans that we are adding to the planet every day.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's so hard. People are so resistant to this message. And I mean, aside from the fact that people just want to have a child or children, it's difficult because people take it so personally when we even broach this subject. Like, it's similar, I think, to the vegan at the Thanksgiving table, the non-vegan Thanksgiving table, who like takes the turkey platter and passes it to the next person without saying anything, and someone across the table undoubtedly takes it personally and says, oh really? It's similar to someone who chooses to be child-free speaking about these issues. I have found also, as someone who has chosen not to procreate, that the people I'm speaking with will very frequently take it as a direct affront to their choices to have children. It's a tough one for sure, but a necessary conversation that we need to be having, and I'm glad you're having it. So what about your childhood, Leilani? How do you account for your deep connection to animals and the environment? Can you tie it back to your own roots?
So I grew up in Minnesota, in a fairly small city called Rochester, and I grew up. We had horses, so I grew up working. Actually, one of my first jobs was working at a horse farm, and it was in exchange to keep my horse at the farm. So that was how I paid for my horse's boarding, and so I was around animals, and we also had at some point my horse was at a place that had chickens and pigs and cows and was, a farm with all different kinds of animals. And I think just interacting with those animals, as anyone who's visited a farm sanctuary would know, that these animals it's no different than interacting with a cat or a dog. And you come to realize very quickly that they are just like the animals that we are taught to nurture and knit sweaters for and love. And these animals that are, for whatever reason, have been relegated to being animals that are for food, are just as loving and just as emotional and have just as much personality as the others. And so it doesn't make any sense. And I think anybody who interacts with those animals will come to that conclusion. That's why I think these farm sanctuaries and these animal rescues are so important, because I think no human can interact with these animals and then deny that. So I mean, I remember from a very young age, and I don't know exactly where it came from, but I remember at a very young age, like in elementary school, getting into a fight with a boy in the at my elementary school who was stomping on an anthill, like he was destroying their anthill. And I remember just freaking out that he was destroying it. I was trying to explain to him, like, how would you like it if somebody smashed your house? Like, do you know how hard they had to work to like make that mound? Like, that is a ton of work for these ants, and you're just destroying it because you're bored. And so I had that somehow in me from a very young age, but where it came from, I'm not sure, because it was instilled in me at a very, very young age.
It's funny. I mean, I think that like speaks to, I don't know, like were we born that way, or is it just that kids frequently have this kind of natural ability to see justice, and then it's just the world that removes it from us? I always get so annoyed by the stomping on the mound, the anthill makes me think of like when kids run into a group of pigeons to like have them flitter away or whatever. I always just want to go up to those parents and be like, why is that okay? Why do you think that's okay? Like, anyway, I digress, but I wonder how that early on, like, understanding of animal rights that you had ultimately led you to this unique connection of combining your veganism and your race car driving.
Yeah, I mean, the racing really came into my life at towards the end. I didn't get into racing until I had graduated from college, was when I started to race. I started to race in 2001. So it was not something that was like planned to be a part of my life in any way. It was sort of just this strange thing that came into my life, and I got, sucked into it and was like, this is awesome. I love this. I'm going to go race cars. And I remember feeling like I wanted to fit in and trying to fit in. And that's very hard. Like, think about it. I'm a girl in a sport that's almost all men. And then 2, I was coming from California. I had a degree in biology. Most of the guys, that I'm racing against, all they've been doing their whole lives is, wanting to be race car drivers. They're not going off and going to college, and they just want to drive race cars. So it was very, very different, but I was trying to fit in. And then at some point, I don't know what it was that just snapped, but I just realized I'm never going to fit in. Why am I even bothering trying to fit in? And that's when I just became very vocal. That was in 2006, where I put up a section on my website that was dedicated to talking about environmental news and alternative fuels and electric cars and all of these things that I cared about. And there were a lot of people that were, saying, this is a big mistake. Like, you're still trying to work your way up the ladder of racing. You need to appeal to any sponsor you possibly can appeal to. And by being so vocal about all these environmental issues, you are going to alienate yourself from a ton of companies, and it's going to hurt your career. So I was being actively told not to do it, but I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't have felt okay about not using my car to try and do something better with it, to do something bigger with it, to send a good message. Like, that became really more important to me than the racing. I mean, the racing is fun and I loved it, and it's a huge thrill, and I wanted to prove that women belong, and all of those things were a part of it. But being able to get these messages in front of this demographic of people that normally don't hear it was really the primary goal. So, I would come home from Daytona, and the first thing I would do is watch the race that I had taped on Fox Sports, just to hear how many times did they have to say the word vegan. That was the whole goal of it. And so I feel like I did that with all the issues that I really cared about. I mean, the vegan car was the last one. I had been pitching the vegan car since 2011. I pitched it to every single vegan company in the world, and just nobody bit. And it wasn't until the end of 2016 that A Well-Fed World called me up and said, we're going to take you to Daytona. And it was really just going to be that one-off race. And then it just went so well. We got so much exposure from it. I think the value was something like, they have those companies that sort of analyze how much exposure you got during the television broadcast. And it was the equivalent of like $1.6 million worth of advertising for the vegan cause. So it went so well that they, said, we got to keep doing this. Let's do more races. So that was sort of the last car that I had been pitching that had never happened. I was able to run the Cove car off of crowdfunding. The Blackfish car was also off of crowdfunding. And then What the Health was on the car this year, which we just wanted to send the vegan message still, but do it in a different way. And I do think documentaries are such a powerful way to change people, because for 90 minutes, people actually may shut off their phones and just give 100% of their attention to a movie. And I think that's very rare in today's society. It seems like everybody's attention span is so short. So I'm a big fan of documentaries. I myself am a big documentary junkie. And, that's why I want to make a really, really good film about population. I know it's such a hard issue, and it'll be difficult to send this message in a perfect way. But that's why I'm decided to stop racing and concentrate on that, because I do think it's really important. And I think if we make a good one, it can have a big effect. Before the Cove came out, I had never heard of, I didn't know they were killing dolphins. I had no idea that, about the dolphin captivity industry and its tie to the slaughter. And the Cove really put that issue on the map. So films are a really powerful way, I think, to affect society. And Blackfish, when Blackfish came out and started playing on CNN, you could see the SeaWorld stock drop. Like, if you go back and you look at SeaWorld stock and you look at it for the last 5 years, you can see when it aired on CNN, because their stock just fell out of the sky. They lost I think $3 billion worth of market share on the Monday after it aired. So it reinvigorates my belief that this is a great way to change people that maybe aren't going to immerse themselves in an issue, because it's only 90 minutes of their time. And it's really a passive way of learning, right? All you have to do is turn on the TV and hit play, or fire up Netflix and hit play. And then you just sit back and the information is all brought to you. You don't have to read a book. You don't have to go buy anything. It's very simple. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of embark on my new career working on documentaries.
That's so exciting, Leilani. I mean, there's nobody better situated to do it than you. And by the way, I've been following your career since you started. Well, since you came out as vegan and as a big vegan ambassador, probably since around 2006. And I can't, you look exactly 100% the same as you did when you started. I don't even understand. It's like you found some time portal and just stops aging in this process. But anyway, I can only credit the vegan food, because I'm not, and also I'm a little bit of a vegan junk food vegan. I eat vegan mac and cheese and all I'm not a Whole Foods plant-based, all about the healthy stuff. I do eat healthy stuff for sure, but I also eat all the vegan junk food, and I love the vegan junk food. And I've also only been, in the last 8 years, I've had one cold. Whereas before I went vegan, when I was still vegetarian, I would get the cold at least once or twice a year.
whenever it went around and like my friends got sick or my family got sick, I'd be like, oh, great. Now is not a good time to get a cold. Like, I don't have time for this right now. Then I went vegan and I stopped getting sick. People around me would be sick and I just wouldn't catch it. And so I have to say, like, my health, and I do feel younger and I feel like I have more energy. That's all I can credit it with, because I'm not like a gym rat. It has to be from how I eat. Not putting dead animals in your body is really good for you.
It is. That's true. And so how can our listeners follow your efforts and support them and keep an eye out for like the future documentaries and change-making endeavors that you're surely going to be undertaking in the coming months and years?
Yeah, so my website is just Leilani, Leilani.green, Green. And, or you can go to carbonfreegirl.com. It goes to the same place. And, I'm mostly on Twitter, I'm on 3 social medias, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So Twitter is the one that I'm definitely most active on. That's where, that's my regular social media. And then if I have a pretty picture I want to share, then I'll do that on Instagram. I've been dialing back on Facebook. It's funny because I have the most followers on Facebook. But I've been dialing back there. I feel like I get more trolls. There's more arguing. The whole infighting thing that I was talking about that the marketing company showed is like one of the big barriers that vegans have in bringing the movement to a bigger audience. It's the infighting. I find that I see more of that on Facebook. So I don't know. I've just been dialing back on my exposure to Facebook because I feel like I get a lot of bad energy from Facebook. So yeah, Twitter and Instagram, and it's just at my name, at Leilani Münter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again. And I know you're going to stay on with me to chat a little bit with our flock. I have a couple more questions for you that we'll address there. And I'm so appreciative of the many ways you're out there fighting the good fight. So we hope that you come back again, and hopefully it won't be as long next time. So thanks again for joining us today on our Henhouse, Leilani.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Did you know that our Henhouse publishes ebooks? Hen Press's latest is Maureen by a Not Pick. This complex and beautiful essay has something truly new to say about how we treat the vulnerable among us, whether they are the frail elderly hidden away in nursing homes or the animals who end up on our plates. Also, you've probably heard by now about the raging controversy regarding the Liberian chimpanzees abandoned to starve by the New York Blood Center. If you want the truly unbelievable backstory on those chimps, a tale of quote-unquote love, betrayal, civil war, and so much more, don't miss The Lines We Draw by Sangu Iyer. Hen Press's books are available wherever ebooks are sold, or go to ourhenhouse.org and click on Hen Press to find out more.
Anxieties are rising. Our first story is from the Center of My Plate column by Lisa Keefe over at meetingplace.com. The title of this particular column is Would You Rather Throw an Interception or Be Sacked? And I'm actually going to ignore the football analogy that she talks about in the story because I want to get right to the point, because this point is fascinating. This is something I didn't know about, and it's about a lawsuit that is not a lawsuit, a new law that has given rise to a lawsuit. So in Toledo, Ohio, this is a local law in Toledo, and it's called the Lieber Law, Lake Erie Bill of Rights, Lieber, and it was passed earlier this year, and it amended the charter of Toledo to allow citizens to sue on behalf of the lake over pollution. And the whole thing started when algae blooms on the lake, which was fed by agricultural runoff, made the city water undrinkable, and that's been part of the campaign. The day this law passed, and it passed as a ballot initiative, not by the city council, but a ballot initiative that the voters voted on by over 60% margin. And the day it was passed, an Ohio farmer sued, calling it unconstitutional. And this is unbelievable. unbelievable. This is so cool. I mean, this is so cool for agricultural pollution as it's being used here. And think of the other ways it could be used. If cities and municipalities can do ballot initiatives to give legal rights to lakes, well, they can do ballot initiatives to give legal rights to animals. Of course, we're many lawsuits away from seeing whether this law is going to hold up. It's being promoted by the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, which is located in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, but I think does work all over the world. I mean, they're concerned in these kind of campaigns in many different places. Right now, they're seeking to crowdfund the costs of participating in this lawsuit, which is defending the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. I love the idea of crowdfunding these kind of lawsuits. And as she points out, she's not as excited about this as I, or if she is. It's not exactly for the same reasons. So she points out CLDF's effort to crowdfund its legal costs, saying it's, quote, fighting for what's right against, quote, big business interests. And, I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're fighting for what's right against big business interests. And crowdfunding is such a powerful way to do that. We will see whether this law holds up. It's such a fascinating idea. I have to give it some thought. She's not totally unsympathetic to the reasons for this lawsuit either. She does understand that there's a problem here. This is one quote from the article. For every new development of townhomes on the outskirts of town, suing over the, quote, nuisance caused by a plant. A plant is apparently like a farm or a factory farm that's been in place for decades. There are impoverished folks who have been on their rural lands for generations who are being taken advantage of by companies that do the bare minimum in the way of nuisance and pollution control. Well, yeah. There are, and they should have the right to sue. Apparently, in Toledo, they do. Another quote here: most meat executives are big fans of the administration's less federal regulation, more states' rights philosophy. But it's exactly that approach that's backing the meat industry into a corner. This is really cool. I love this idea. We will have to keep an eye on what goes on with this lawsuit. Hooray for Toledo. Nice move. All right, our next article is, Shh, Big Dairy is in bed with almond milk. This is from the Daily Herald, and so interesting. Actually, I got it from the Daily Herald. I realize now that the original story is from the Washington Post. And it's pointing out that while dairy farmers are very indignant about beverages calling themselves milk, they're not just indignant, they're, trying to cause legal problems, and just they're so upset about all of these issues. They're actually trying to play both sides of this game. This is a quote: while farmers loudly voice their complaints about alt dairy products, conventional processors are starting to churn them out alongside traditional milk, aiming to cash in on their fast-growing popularity in the U.S. And they point out that H.P. Hood, which is one of the country's oldest dairies, has released a product called Planet Oat. I actually think I have bought that because I love that Oatly, which was the first oat milk on the market. But then I wasn't able to find it anywhere. I think it got so popular so fast they ran out of supply. And I saw this other one, Planet Oat. All right, so the giant dairy cooperative Organic Valley is the distributor of almond-based drinks made by New Barn Organics. And so while the farmers, the cow exploiters, probably can't take any kind of advantage of these kind of opportunities, clearly the bigger distributors, they see the writing on the wall. And why should they make money? According to this article, Americans are drinking 40% less milk, they mean dairy milk, obviously, than in 1975, and prices have suffered a rout. Meanwhile, the plant alternatives are hot. Sales of alt milks, I kind of like that term, alt milk. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. We're up 8% in the year through January 26, hitting $1.7 billion. Plant-based cheeses and yogurts, while a smaller category, are seeing even bigger gains. So, yeah, the writing's on the wall here. And, obviously the big guys intend to make money at it. they're pointing it to Chobani, Chobani yogurt, which has harshly criticized using dairy terms, saying it's improper, illegal, and poses a public health risk, has no problem getting in on selling them. Though, it does point out that they don't label them as yogurt. So, money talks, and it's talking to these folks. That's for sure. All right. This is just a silly article, but I'm going to close with this. This is from Drovers.com, the Greg Henderson column. Gala of the Fake and Phony Benefits HSUS. And this is just this story where he's talking about a recent gala by the Humane Society of the United States. And I just thought it was fascinating, the unbelievable level of detail he goes into this on this. Like, why does he care? Why does he think his readers care? It was on May 4th, and celebrities wearing faux furs gathered at Paramount Studios in Hollywood to eat fake meat and recognize themselves for phony accomplishments. The money, however, was real. It raised $1 million, and tickets to the event, he gives the price, $500 per person, $15,000 per table of 10. He tells the newspapers that covered it. He goes into the detail on the food. Hors d'oeuvres were vegan spring rolls and pot stickers. The HSUS CEO Kitty Block was on hand, and then talking about some other celebrities who were there, who was honored, who spoke. It's just so hilarious that he closes with, I didn't even understand this. You can tell me whether you understand it. All right. In Block's final statements, she said, "Our fight to alleviate the suffering of farm animals is a global effort. We are pushing for corporate reform, humane legislation, and reduction of meat consumption on every continent. There's power in what you buy, and there's power in what you consume. And I think if everybody's just a little bit of an advocate, you can make great change." All right, and this is his closing statement. This is the part I didn't understand on her comments. Change. Yes, those are the folks who have convinced themselves they know better than you how to care for your animals. Okay. Yeah. You know what? It's not too hard to convince anybody that they know better than you how to care for your animals. So that's it. I don't even know exactly what he's worried about here, but he sure must be worried about something. And that's it for this week's Rising Anxieties. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's show. If you liked it, please support it by joining our flock at ourhenhouse.org/donate. Or if you're not able to join the flock, you can make whatever donation you're comfortable with. And we'd really appreciate it if you do that. If you can leave a good review on Apple Podcasts or like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Of course, if you shop on Amazon, you can use Amazon Smile using Our Hen House as your favorite charity, because we are a 501c3 registered charity. And of course, please spread the word, tell your friends about us. If you're one of our listeners who do support us, thank you so much. Thank you to my co-host, Jasmine Singer, to Michael Harron and John Frusciante for their work in producing this podcast, and for Leilani Münter for coming on and sharing her thoughts with you. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. You can do that in Apple Podcasts or pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're a Flock member, remember to check your email or the Flock Facebook page on Tuesday for your bonus content. In the meantime, keep doing whatever it is that you do to change the world for animals, because you are all they've got.